Joining me now, Nats fan and Capitals fan and Skins fan, Ben Tribbett. Follow him at Not Larry Sabato. Noted now national Democratic strategist. In demand, he's got so many clients he can't handle them all. But if you want to win and you're a Democrat, go to at Not Larry Sabato and send him a direct message there. And you want to hire him before the other people do when this election's over. Ben, great to have you.
Hey, good morning, John.
Ben, all you do is win elections. But you're not with anybody in the presidential campaign. So what do you think of the Bernie, I don't know what you want to call it, juggernaut?
I think Bernie right now has all the momentum in the primary. Everybody can see that. And the anti-Bernie vote, so we could call it, is split so many different directions that it's virtually impossible to stop him unless some of these candidates decide to consolidate down.
Well, how do you do that? I mean, why should Elizabeth Warren drop out? Why should Mayor Pete drop out? Why should, Bloomberg's not going to drop out. He's spending, I don't know, $500 million. Why should they drop out?
Well, I think that you have to get, in the Democratic Party, to get any delegates, you have to get 15% of the vote in a state.
Right.
And so take the Virginia primary coming up. If a candidate scores 5 or 6% of the vote, they won't win any delegates, and all of the people that voted for that candidate, their votes essentially will be thrown out and meaningless. Mm-hmm. And the delegates will be divided amongst the people that got 15% of the vote. And so when you have this many candidates, if one candidate's getting 6, another one's getting 12, another one's getting 14, you're taking huge chunks of the electorate and essentially throwing their voices out and then allocating the delegates proportionally among the rest. And so Sanders is getting 30, 35% of the vote in some places and getting almost half of the delegates because the number of votes that are being thrown out that don't count towards delegates because their candidate didn't hit the 15% threshold. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the reasons why he's so heavily favored going into Super Tuesday. I think that if the field consolidated down, and it doesn't necessarily need to immediately consolidate to a one-on-one, but even consolidating down a little bit could get some additional candidates above 15 and keep this race going.
Oh, okay. So that makes sense. So let's take Virginia, right? I think Bloomberg is going to win Virginia. He's got a great organization here. He's got some momentum, spending money. Sanders only got, 35% when he ran in 2016. That's about where he tops out. So he got Sanders at 28% or 22, right? Bloomberg at 22. Pete's down around 13. Amy's got 8. Then you go down the line. So what you're saying is Klobuchar's 8%. If you vote for Klobuchar, she gets no delegates. That 8% could have gone to Pete. That 8% could have gone to Biden. That 8% could have gone somewhere else to Bloomberg in order to stop Bernie. But the 8% goes to Klobuchar. She gets nothing. They wouldn't have voted for Bernie, and so that's propelling the Bernie juggernaut.
Yeah, that's the math. That's the problem. And I think the Virginia polling showed that Biden, Bernie, and Bloomberg will be the 3 candidates that are going to qualify for delegates in Virginia. Mm-hmm. If Warren gets any delegates in Virginia, she'll likely get 1 delegate from the 2 Northern Virginia congressional districts because she might not hit 15 statewide, but she could hit 15 in each of those districts. And Klobuchar, I'm not sure, will qualify for delegates anywhere. I don't know there's a particular district that she is strong enough to hit 15 in. Warren has more regional things going on. So between that, essentially, if you assume, unless you live in the 8th or 11th district and you think Elizabeth Warren needs your vote just to get that 1 delegate, and I'm not sure it does, then basically, if you're in Virginia, your choices are those 3 if you don't want to throw your vote away. The Buttigieg vote is a maybe, might get some delegates in some places. it's a question mark. I don't think he's going to hit 15 in Virginia, but he could. But it's a big question mark. It doesn't look like he's going to. So,
well, he's coming to Virginia. He's coming to Virginia to campaign. He was, the speaker at the Commonwealth dinner way back when I was doing it live there. I had a chance to meet him. Very formidable guy. I thought he made a wonderful speech. Why has he not resonated here in Virginia?
I think that there's a few different reasons. Primarily, Bernie has a activist group that they've been the ones that have been driving a lot of the primaries going on across the state. I mean, the Bernie supporters are the exact same people who were driving the primary against Dick Saslaw last cycle, for example, that got Yasmin so close despite the fact she was vastly outspent. So these are activists that are very much ingrained in the community. The Biden support comes from, obviously the establishment in the state. And then Bloomberg has put together a really good team. And I think he's done a lot in Virginia. Also, remember, he's put a lot of money in Virginia before the cycle,
right?
In support of things. And so I think he has a lot of goodwill in the state. And so I'm just not sure what Pete Buttigieg's constituency is in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he's struggling to get to 15.
All right, so we talked a little bit about Virginia. I think it's going to be one of Bloomberg's big wins. Let's go Bernie, then Bloomberg. Can Bernie get to 1910 first ballot Milwaukee, Ben?
A lot of the delegate count really relies on momentum, right? And so I think as Bernie continues to win primaries, it becomes more plausible for him to get there. There's absolutely paths for him to get to a majority on the first ballot. I don't think he will make it. I really think the question comes down to how far away Bernie ends up landing from 1900.
Right.
I think it's very hard to tell him you can't be the nominee at 1880.
Right.
If Bernie's at 1500, 1600, then I think it's a different situation. So
I agree.
This really is about not so much about Bernie. Bernie's going to get the vote that Bernie's going to get. It's really all about the other candidates and whether or not they can figure out strategically how to qualify for enough delegates to have a voice.
Right. So sounds like we're in total agreement here. I think if Bernie gets to Milwaukee 1600 or under, he's not going to be the nominee because if he's got 1450, they're just not going to nominate him. It's either going to be one of the other candidates or somebody parachutes in. 500 super delegates come in to play. They're not going to vote for Bernie. It's over. But if he gets 16 or up, I don't know how you deny him that. If he's got 1710 and, the next closest person has, 880, I just don't see how the guy's denied the nomination.
Well, part of it too, John, is like if he's at 1710 and needs 1900, remember that he can always pick someone for VP that can get him 200 votes.
Right. So he can do that. Warren, that's why she's staying in the race. Now, the 500 super delegates that come in, do they add on? Like, is the total then go from 3820 to 4,300, or does their votes come away from the existing delegates there? How does that 500 work?
It's an add-on.
It's an add-on. So on the second ballot, you don't need 1910. You'd need 2160.
Something like that.
Yeah. So the 500s are an add-on. And so that's the wild card in this whole thing. All right. Tell me about the Bloomberg campaign. Where's it going, Ben?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, look, it's funny because I think that the Bloomberg campaign is sort of a strategy that Mike Henry, if you remember from when Mike Henry was working for Hillary Clinton, obviously yes. Mike Henry now being campaign chief of staff. If you remember the memo that he wrote in 2007, that was the famous memo against Obama that Hillary should skip Iowa, New Hampshire, and the other early states and just start on Super Tuesday because all that those states could do is potentially embarrass her and give Obama momentum. and how he was derided and people called for him to be fired. And essentially Bloomberg has just taken that memo, and that is his campaign, is the 2007 Mike Henry memo for Hillary. Mm-hmm. And I think that Mike was right. I think Mike was absolutely right when he wrote that. The reality is the early states are just built out to embarrass candidates, to show that they don't have momentum. They're not necessarily fair for everyone who is participating in them. Campaigning nationally for Bloomberg when he has the resources to go up on the air everywhere is exactly the right strategy. Mm-hmm. The question is, is he's going to probably be able to qualify for delegates in most places. The question is about the rest of the field and whether or not they are throwing away delegates that don't allow people to accumulate. Bloomberg's going to win delegates. He and Bernie are the only two people in the field right now that have a strategy to actually win delegates. I don't know if Bloomberg yet has a strategy to get to a majority, but I also think that that's not really a fair thing to say until we get past Super Tuesday, because he hasn't competed anywhere yet. But those are the only two candidates that are in the race right now that I think actually have a plan to accumulate delegates for the convention. The rest of them just seem like they're flailing around trying to figure out places to go and where there might be opportunities and claiming momentum. And I'm not sure anyone has it.
I agree with that assessment. If you had to bet now, Ben, who's going to be the nominee?
I'm not ready. I'm really not ready to place a bet on who the nominee will be. Because I think the thing is so fluid. I mean, you remember, John, last summer I came on your show and predicted Biden would be out by Super Tuesday.
Yes.
And that was coming true. Now it seems like the establishment's trying to sort of rescue a corpse and revive it. But so he may make it to Super Tuesday.
But if he gets beat Saturday, Ben, I mean, he might be in Super Tuesday, but he's not going to get any delegates. He's going to come in, fifth in the majority of these states. So if he loses South Carolina, your prediction, even if he's in, is accurate. And I don't see why he would stay in to further embarrass himself, because I don't think he's going to win Saturday. I think Sanders is going to beat him in South Carolina Saturday night, and he's done, just like you predicted 18 months ago.
Well, I think that, Biden has shown exactly, why I predicted that, which is he just doesn't have – there's nothing there. And, people didn't want Joe Biden the first time. 2 times he ran. They don't really want him now.
Right.
And I think that what he's doing, if you look at what he, is showing in places like New Hampshire, he basically, again, just pulled votes that didn't qualify for any delegates. And I think that really these candidates – Andrew Yang said this on CNN – the other day, the candidates have to really be able to evaluate this themselves and not just go with, do they have money left to push on and do they want to pay some more people to do things, because their consultants are going to want them to spend their money, right? But the candidates really need to evaluate this, because when you vote for a candidate that does not get to 15%, essentially you didn't vote. And most people don't understand this. Mm-hmm. And so you're just taking up large swaths of votes and crumpling them up and not counting.
Right.
And you take like an Amy Klobuchar, for example. She's going to win delegates on Super Tuesday in Minnesota. We know that, right? Mm-hmm. She might even win the state. She's going to accumulate a substantial number of delegates. There might be some other places she's going to accumulate delegates. But there's a whole bunch of places that she's not going to accumulate. And what I would like to see from someone like that is, if you're going to be in the campaign and have a strategy for just accumulating some delegates in certain places at this point, even if you're still trying to get some momentum going, I hope they acknowledge that at the debate. I hope that they tell people in the places where they're not going to compete, hey, look, don't vote for me if you live in this place, this place, this place. I'm not competing. I'm not going to get to 15% there. And it's not, and don't throw your vote away on me.
Right.
If people don't do that, Bernie will be the nominee. And people have, and these candidates have to be smarter about it and let people know. I mean, this is one thing I respect about what Bloomberg's doing. He told people he's not competing in 4 states.
Right.
So you don't need to go throw your vote away for him if you're one of those 4 states, if you support him. He's not going to get 15% of the vote.
Right.
And that's okay for people to say. It's okay on Super Tuesday for them to say, look, I'm competing here, and in these other places, give your vote to someone else. The fact these candidates are all afraid to do that, is creating a situation that makes it impossible. If they want to actually have a plausible path to be nominated, not Bernie, they need to all accumulate delegates.
No, you're right. You're right. I think that makes a lot of sense. So Super Tuesday, Virginia's part of it. Open primary. I assume you're going to be voting in it. I am not, because I'm not a Democrat, and I don't think I should be involved in your choice. So I'm not voting in it, even though by law I would be able to. I decided that that's not classy, and I'm not going to do it.
That's new for you. That was you used to.
Yes, I mean I voted in Democratic primaries when I wanted the candidate to win. Like I voted for Ralph Northam for lieutenant governor in 2013 because I didn't like the guy he was running against, the Obama guy, and I didn't like E.W. Jackson at the time. So I voted for Northam because I wanted him to win. If McAuliffe had opposition in 2013, I'd have voted for him. He didn't. So I voted in Democratic primaries when it was legitimate. But I'm not going to vote in one when at the end of the day I'm voting for Trump. So it doesn't make any sense, and it's not a classy move. Mm-hmm. For yourself, have you made a decision who you're going to vote for in Virginia on Super Tuesday?
I'm going to vote for someone who can win delegates.
That's one of three.
What I've said, and that's what I've said all along. And so, I have a lot of warmth to a bunch of the candidates, but I'm going to, and I want to see this debate this week, not necessarily for the debate, but what comes out of the debate, because that's going to inform who can win delegates. But I'm going to vote for someone who can win delegates, and everyone who's listening to this in Virginia should vote for someone who can win delegates. So if you want Bernie, vote for Bernie. If you want Bloomberg, vote for Bloomberg. If you want Biden, vote for Biden. But vote for someone who can win delegates.
So it sounds like I don't want to pin you down, but it sounds like you're undecided between Bloomberg and Sanders because you don't like Biden. So we'll be interested to see who you vote for, and I respect the fact that you haven't made up your mind. I want to get to Virginia, and I want to get to redistricting reform. And look, the hypocrisy of the Democrats now in the House in bottling up this redistricting reform in committee when it passed last year 87-13, just passed 38-2 in the House. Brian Cannon is telling me he's got 65 votes in the House for this to pass, and Joe Lindsay's bottling up, and Speaker Philip Corn and Caucus of the Corn basically is letting it die in committee. Ben, try to explain to me why this is not, they campaigned on it, why this is not the height of hypocrisy.
Well, I think this is probably, there's been a bunch of different areas where I think the House has not been up to par this session. This is the area that they can put the medal on themselves. They've done a fantastic job of what they're doing on redistricting. Look, this amendment that was done last year, the compromise amendment, was awful. I think I was the first person to raise red flags about it when it was moving through very quickly last year. It's an awful, awful amendment because of the way that it handles ties and the way that it allows ties to be created. I've seen redistricting all over the country. This is not the way to do it. We do need partisan redistricting. You could do nonpartisan redistricting, by the way, with a bill, not a constitutional amendment. It just would only apply for 2021. And we would need to get a constitutional amendment in place for the future. But in terms of this amendment, it's a trash amendment, and you shouldn't be putting something in the Constitution that's a trash amendment. And, I've challenged Brian Cannon on a number of issues on this online. And, when he gets called out on this, frankly, he disappears and doesn't want to discuss the actual details of what's in this. And that's unfortunate. And I think that he needs to be honest with people about what's in this amendment, because it would really be a disaster for 10 years if this passed and was what was used in 2021.
Well, having said that, all these Democrats voted for it in 2019, and they campaigned that they would turn it into an amendment. And now because they have power, they're backtracking on it. And I think, look, I think if Eileen Fillercorn changed her position on it, she needs to come out and say, you know what, I'm deep six in the bill and I'm voting against it. I changed my mind. It sucks. I'll accept that. But the way they're doing it is the height of hypocrisy, Ben. And you know it and I know it. But I respect what you're saying. Anyway, I got to go. The Astros are going to win the World Series 2020. I can't wait till the season starts. We're going to put all the naysayers, we're going to shut them up when we win the whole thing again. I can't wait. Ben, thanks for being with us. I'm going to have the final word on that. Perfect baseball. John Fredericks Radio Network. Always good to have Ben Tribbett on.